And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. Well, good morning again, Celebration Spiritual Center. It is so good to be here with each and every one of you. I'm going to get right into the message because we have some things to cover, and I think more or less I'm really just going to tell a story more than preach today. But I think this will be powerful as we're wrapping up this message series, The Miseducation of the Metaphysician. Now, in week one, we started with the anatomy of an unshackled mind, and I talked about the fact that one of the keys of being a metaphysician, one of the traits of being a metaphysician, is that a metaphysician is free. A metaphysician is free because she lives and operates in the realm of the unseen. She is not bound by the external circumstances of life. She is not bound by who is on the Supreme Court and who's not. She's not bound by who a senator, how a senator votes or not. She's not bound by what somebody says is possible for her. She's not bound by what somebody says she can be, do, or have. So it's important that we understand that one of the important traits of a metaphysician is that we have an unshackled mind. Yes, yes. In week two, Pastor Yolanda brought us a powerful message, and recognizing that we have the wonderful, beautiful, true phrase that we leap and the net appears, but if metaphysicians understand that we leap because the net is always there. Because we recognize that God, source, this omnipresent substance, this thing that always is always there. It's everywhere at all times, constantly encountered. So we don't have to wait for the net to appear, because if God is the net, it is always there. Yes, yes? In week three, who committed the crime? I brought our attention to the ways in which we disenfranchise ourselves with our own beliefs. And so understanding that, then we can free ourselves and liberate ourselves, realizing that we are not criminals, nor are we prisoners to our thoughts and our beliefs. And we looked at using two things. One, we talked about using the affirmation as we find it in Lessons in Truth, God loves me, right? And Dr. Emily Cady writes that if you just affirm that every day, you will absolutely shift and change your life. And then we also went through the denials, what I call the 4 core denials, that we use the power of denials to get ourselves out of jail. Last week, home court advantage. What I taught was that meditation gives us our home court advantage. As Dr. Emily Cady talks about practicing the presence, contacting this field, and we looked at the science behind that in quantum physics, and how when we are connecting to that field on a daily basis, it gives us home court advantage. Everything begins to work in our favor. It's only from contacting that field and continuously bringing from that field out into the life, out into your life, the qualities of that field, that's the only way that you can affirm things like nothing but good can come from this, or that you can affirm things like things are always working out for me. So in the beginning of this series, I said a couple things. I said that this series is a divine interruption. It's designed to interrupt any thoughts that are unlike the truth of who and what you are. This series is designed to bring you back to yourself, and it is designed to encourage you to put some things down and to pick up some new things. And so as we have journeyed through these 4 weeks, now that we have learned it, we must live it. So I'm speaking from the topic today, take it and live it. Now, what I also said in the first week was that a metaphysician, I talked about 3 different traits of an unshackled mind. And the third one that I talked about was, I said a metaphysician practices prayer, meditation, and forgiveness. Now, we spoke extensively about meditation last week, but we haven't talked about prayer and forgiveness. And so I want to tell you a story about my own life that really highlights how we can operate as metaphysicians using this power of prayer and this power of forgiveness. And so it's beautiful that we sang this song today. I pray for you, you pray for me, and watch God change things, because it underscores so much of what I know to be true, what my life has proven to be true, and how I have learned to move through life. So we're going to jump in a time machine, and I want to take you back to 2009. Now, in 2009, I was not Pastor Greg. Right? I was not the Pastor Greg that you knew. Now, back in 2009, my divorce wasn't finalized. I was still going through a divorce. And it was an interesting time because as I had met with my attorney and I was satisfied with her, and she was filing paperwork on my behalf, after our initial meeting and after I paid her a whole lot of money, I'm telling the victim story first. You got to understand this, right? So you got to understand where I am, right? This is not a prosperity report, right? Time went by and I wasn't hearing back from her and I wasn't getting any correspondence and she wasn't returning my phone calls. And I got a little concerned. I got a little worried. Well, long story short, this woman took all my money and all of her other clients. This is the victim story, y'all. Y'all don't usually hear this from me. I don't talk like this. Myself and all of her other clients, she took our money and was just left high and dry, right? And so now, not only am I going through a divorce, but now I'm suing who was my attorney, to get my money back. And also, I was contacted by the Bar Association because proceedings had started for her to be disbarred. So I was being interviewed by them and going through all of that process, which had nothing to do with what I was trying to do, which was finalize my divorce. In that year, in 2009, I've shared the story a few times, but I was homeless for a period of time. I lost my apartment in that year in early 2009. In 2008, it was important to know, I had recorded an album. I had built a little bit of momentum around my career as an underground artist. And people were clamoring that there was a single I had written called Smile, and people were loving. This was in the MySpace days, so people were like playing it on MySpace, and they loved this song Smile. And they were like, when are you going to do an album? When are you going to do an album? And so I had recorded the album, and through a series of unfortunate events, all of the music was on one hard drive that died, and I couldn't recover it back. The entire record, right? I don't have any of those files. I have like some MP3s of early mixes. I lost the entire record, right? So I was devastated. Now, also what's interesting though, when I think about the 2009, I had a lot of stuff. Like I had all kinds of electronics, I had all kinds of video games and piles of DVDs and big old TV, and I was thinking about my closet, and I used to judge people for this. You hear people talk about, I had all these clothes, tags were still on them, I never wore them. And I used to say, who does that? Like, if you buy something, why don't you wear it? I had, my bedroom was huge, and I had these 2 huge closets full, and I had plenty of clothes in there with tags on that I had never worn. My sneaker game was crazy. I just had, just every color of Air Force Ones. I had these custom black and green Yoda Air Force Ones that were like still one of my favorite pair of shoes, right? I just had stuff, clothes and shoes and stuff. So I had a lot of stuff, but there was also a lot of foolishness going on. You hear that, right? And what's interesting about this, I used the law of attraction to attract all of this stuff. Right? I thought I was practicing the principles, right? I was using the law of attraction and believing that I could have all of these things. Meanwhile, I was only operating in a surface way of mastery. I really wasn't operating in mastery, right? We talked about it in the weeks prior, the 4 stages that Reverend Michael Beckwith talks about. So I was in that second stage, that make it happen manipulator stage. I just come out of the victim stage a little bit because I thought I could have some clothes, but I didn't know I could have peace of mind, right? right? So long story short, I was not happy, in truth. And the previous year, my best friend and I, we had studied A New Earth. Many of you remember, and I've talked about this when Oprah and Eckhart Tolle got together, and we studied A New Earth, and we did that online. And I remember saying to her, I said, you know what, I think I'm going to find a church next year. And she was shocked. Let me back up for a minute. Now, although I was not Pastor Greg, I was a trained minister. I went to, I'm 4th generation minister. I've been operating in ministry for most of my life, and again, entered seminary in 2000. But I was not practicing as a minister, and I didn't tell people I was a minister. So she was shocked. She's like, you going to church? I've been away from church for 7 years, except for funerals and weddings. So I said, yeah, but I said, I'm not going to look for it. It's going to come to me. And so through a series of events, which is a whole nother story unto itself, I was introduced to a place called Sacred Center, New York, and Reverend August Gold. Many of you know Reverend August. We had her here, 2 years ago? She spoke for our anniversary, and many of you were at Sacred Center back in the day. And in the spring of 2009, I began to attend Sacred Center, New York, and I kept hearing about this class. Kept hearing about 4 T's. 4 T's, 4 T's. And I kept hearing people are changing their lives and all kinds of amazing things at 4 T's, 4 T's. And Reverend August would tell stories about people that were in the class and how their lives, they had healed themselves from cancer and they had amassed wonderful careers and attracted money and all these things. So I was clear. I was like, I'm taking this class. Whenever it starts, I'm taking it. And so I kept asking and asking, when is it starting? When is it starting? Finally, I heard that it was starting in June of that year. And so I immediately signed up. And for me, at that point, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I was all in. If Reverend August had said, stand on your head so you could be prosperous, I would have stood on my head, right? Because that's the place where I was at. Anybody ever been there? Where it's just like, at this point, whatever y'all tell me to do, I'm just going to do. Because I can't take this pain anymore. And so as I entered that class, I was clear about what it was I wanted to attract. Because if this is prosperity, and I know you got to be specific and you got to tell the universe what you want, I'm going to give the universe my list, right? And so at that time, my list was I wanted to record and release an album, right? I wanted to meet a manager to help me with my music career. I wanted more money. I wanted to leave my career in IT, and I wanted a lover and a partner. Now, this class was immediately exciting. It was immediately inspiring. And one of the things that I love, next month, we're going to be teaching on the Tao Te Ching. It's going to be a powerful series. And Reverend August, as our teacher, was the person that really helped me to understand that text. And it was the first time, I still remember, the very first class, she uttered the words, "Does the Lord of a great empire go out begging for rice?" It was the first time I'd ever heard those words, understanding and thinking about me being a prosperous being, and I have the capacity and capability to be prosperous, and recognizing that I was living my life. I am the Lord of a great empire. Each and every one of us are. But are we going out begging for rice? Most of the time we are, in truth. And then I heard the words for the first time, all of life is a movement toward our wholeness. Those words moved me to my core. It was in the second or third week, and I remember coming home that night, and for me as a musician, many times, and this really goes back to even just with my childhood, not always speaking and expressing who I was or what I was thinking, but I could do that through the piano. And so I used the piano. If I was angry, I'd go to the piano. If I was sad, I'd go to the piano. If I was happy, I would go to the piano. And so feeling all of this emotion and feeling so inspired, all I could do was just go to the keyboard, and I just began to play, and I began to play, and I began to play, and I found that this chord progression was happening, and I just began to sing, all of life is a movement toward our wholeness. Many of you know this song. And that's all I sang, all of life is a movement toward our wholeness. And I was late. I had to go to work in the morning, so I said, you got to put this song down, it'll still be there in the morning. But I was awakened in the middle of the night, and I heard, can you hear the knocking at your door? Can you hear life calling you to more? Yes. And the song basically wrote itself. And so, again, I was so inspired. I was so inspired by this process, and again, all in, ready, willing, and able to do what was necessary. There's another component of the 4 T's program that I love, and it has everything to do with what we just sung about. I'll pray for you, you pray for me, and watch God change things. What we do in the 4 T's program is we form small prosperity prayer circles. Yes, yes? And what I love about it is it's an opportunity for many of us. You may have never had a prayer partner, a dedicated, faithful prayer partnership in your life. But for the weeks of this class, you're going to have a dedicated prayer partner. That every day, whatever the agreed time is amongst the group, you come together and you pray your individual prayers. We learn a prayer method through, as Stretton Smith teaches it, the 3-column prayer method. It's very simple. Who and what is God, or your name for God? So we just use God in this case. Where does God live? Within. And then what is the outcome of what you want? So God within prospers me. God within heals me. Very simple, easy, affirmative prayer that you can remember no matter where you are. So that if you're in crisis and when things hit the fan throughout the week, you can come back to that quick and easy 3-column prayer. God within heals me. God within prospers me. God within, God within, God within. And so we use that method and we prayed together. And at that time, we actually had my group, we had a very big prayer circle. It was 12 of us. Yeah. And we prayed each and every morning. But it's interesting because I think it was, I can't remember now, it was the third or the fourth week, we were told we needed to have our prayers and be ready because you're going to get into your group. And that particular day, different people were sharing about their experience thus far. And I remember feeling like I was kind of left behind because people were getting up and they were like, oh, you know, we've only been in this class for a couple weeks, but my sister and I haven't talked for 10 or 15 years, and we just had the most amazing weekend together, and it was beautiful, and our relationship is healed. And then somebody else got up and said, well, me and my ex-wife, things were terrible between us, but things are great now. And somebody else was like, I just got an unexpected check for thousands of dollars. And I'm like, you know, we just been in this class a couple weeks, and like, y'all already prospering? You know, I'm not prospering, right? And the thing about it was, as I was preparing, before I left work to go to class, I got an email from my ex-wife that frankly pissed me off. And I had to go to class. I'm mad. I got to go to class. And I'm thinking about this email that has me upset and arguing in my head, writing the email in my head, listening to other people talk about how prosperous they are, and we only been in the class a couple weeks. And as I'm sitting there in my frustration, I heard something in my mind. Greg, that list you have, you can have all of it. But you will not have that list until you forgive your ex-wife. And I was like, oh, man. Oh, man. Right? But I was all in, right? I was all in. And so I said, okay, I get it. This is real. This is real. So everybody's sharing. And I raised my hand, and Reverend August calls on me, and I stood up kind of reluctantly, and I said, I don't know what to pray. Because I'm clear, I'm hearing what everybody else is sharing, and specifically as different folks were sharing about restored relationships, I'm clear that this is the thing that's standing in the way of what it is that I want. Because when we pray, we either get what we ask for or what's standing in the way of it. And so I was clear now what was standing in the way of all the good that I was seeking, that's trying to find me. And I said, but at the same time, I don't know what to pray. Like, I don't know how to put that into this 3-column thing. And we began to have a discussion, and then once we broke out into groups, my prayer circle helped me craft my prayer. God within me teaches me to love Erica as I love our daughter, Malcolm. Now, many of you have heard me talk about this, but at the time, I didn't even like to say the name Erica. I would avoid speaking her name. I didn't want to hear her name. Some of y'all can relate to that, I'm just saying. And so now for 9 weeks, I have to affirm this prayer and hear 11 other people say that right back to me. God within teaches me to love Erica as I love Malcolm. And so I realized there was some forgiveness work that I had to do. Now, through praying that prayer, that was already doing the work around my previous marriage, but there was some deeper work that I had to do, and of course, we used the Radical Forgiveness Worksheets. We used that process from Colin Tipping, and I was able to heal many wounds that I had around my relationship with my father. Right? I had a lot of judgments around what I thought he should have done and could have done differently, right? And I moved through that, and it took me a while. Many times you come to that worksheet, you might not get through the whole worksheet the first time because you're still angry, you're still in the victim story. I put it down, but again, I was all in, so I came back to it the next day. I said, okay, I'm gonna start again. Because it's kind of like just chiseling away at this rock to reveal me that's inside underneath this rock. And so each time I came back to the worksheets, I was chiseling away, and I got to the place where I was able to see it differently. I was able to be in gratitude for our relationship and our connection. And that summer, what happened, I remember I went to Maryland and I went to visit my sister. And my dad comes to me and he brings me some information that related to his time in the military. And he said, yeah, I just felt like you needed to read this. This is after I've done my forgiveness work. And the information that I read changed the entire story because I didn't know what he was moving through. I didn't know what he had experienced. And so here I am judging him and thinking he should have been a certain way or should have done certain things. But now I understand that he was actually living well beyond his capacity. And so where I was unforgiving and unloving, he became my superhero in that moment. My dad is one of the most amazing men on the planet. But I couldn't see that then. And if I had not done that forgiveness work, I wouldn't have had access to that information. I opened the space so that source could give me this information. And so I know that forgiveness works. This is what a metaphysician must access and must live in. And so as we move through the 12 weeks, I got everything I wanted, y'all. In the middle of the process, I attracted my manager, Kendall. Some of you know her. She's been a part of our community until she moved to North Carolina. And Kendall is amazing because she was the perfect artist manager for me because she had managed gospel artists like Donnie McClurkin. She had managed and worked with Michael Jackson and other people. So she was the perfect artist for me. She knew how to manage someone who's a minister and also a musician. And the songs that I was writing that summer, including Toward Our Wholeness, became the songs for my album that I released in October of the following year. I also came to this realization because I thought I needed to leave my job and I needed to leave this career in order to have the things that I wanted. And I came to a realization that for so long in my life, I've had a wonderful career in IT, and for so long in my life, I hid that I was a musician. Because I was fearful that if they knew I was a musician and knew that I was good, they wouldn't promote me. Because like Greg might leave at any time, so we right? That was my thinking, and so I wouldn't talk about it. I didn't invite people to my shows. Back in the day, I had a regular gig at Soul Cafe in Manhattan, and that was like a Tuesday night gig, and then I would have like no sleep and still be at work the next day. I was doing all of that, and nobody knew, right? And so one of the things that I shifted in my consciousness was that I'm a musician who happens to work in IT. Just shifting that, right? Not that I had to leave the career that I was in because I was making good money, right? I didn't want to leave that money. But I recognized that all what I needed to shift, what I needed to leave was that thought I had about myself. And so I left that thought and things began to open up. And my coworkers at that time were just so incredibly supportive and so excited and bought CDs and came to my shows and were so happy to be a part of that experience with me. And at the end of the 4Ts program in September of 2009, I met a young woman named Yolanda Batts. Very interesting, right? Now, that would be enough, right? But then later in the fall, it was around October, it was I think around about 10 o'clock at night, my phone rings and I see it's Erica. Now, here's how I know I had truly forgiven and was healed, y'all. Because back in the day, before then, when I would see her number, I'd be like, oh, Lord, what is this, right? I'd get annoyed. I'd feel this thing in my stomach, None of that was there. And I was viscerally aware that, I'm clear, right? So I'm like, maybe something's going on with Malcolm, hey, what's up? What's going on? And she was talking. She was kind of hesitant as she was talking. And as she was talking, she began to cry, and she said, I know there's a lot of things that have taken place between the two of us. There are a lot of things that have been done. There are a lot of things that each of us have said. And I just want to ask you to forgive me. She said, I'm sorry. And she's crying as she's saying this. And of course, but at that point, I'm starting to cry. I said, Erica, what you don't realize is I've already forgiven you. What you don't realize is that I've spent this entire summer forgiving you. Speaking these words, God within teaches me to love Erica as I love our daughter Malcolm. All is well, all is clear, all is forgiven, we're good. Now, one of the other things that we do in 4Ts, and I was looking back at this morning and it even surprised me. There's an exercise where we write goals for our life. I mean, that could something you might not do until 10 years from now, 20 years from now, just to get all these things out. Because we recognize if we write it down, the universe is actually going to start to respond to it. And one of the things that I wrote down, and it's something that I come back to periodically, what I do now is just kind of check in on the list and be like, wow, that's done now, right? It's awesome. But one of the things I wrote is that Erica and I have raised Malcolm to become a beautiful, confident, responsible, intelligent, and overall amazing young lady. Erica and I have become friends again and have worked as partners rather than foes to raise Malcolm and give her all that she needs to realize her fullest potential. Now, Malcolm just entered her senior year of high school, and we're preparing for college and all of these things. And when I read these words that I wrote in 2009 when she was just a little girl, she was, 8 years old, this is who she is. Malcolm has become a beautiful, confident, responsible, intelligent, and overall amazing young lady. But those words were written when my eyes were not showing me that. And then again, Erica and I have become friends again and have worked as partners rather than foes to raise her. That wasn't the truth of life at that moment. My eyes weren't showing me that. My 5 senses weren't showing me that. But see, a metaphysician doesn't work based on those senses. A metaphysician operates in the unseen and calls the unseen into the scene. And then the other thing I wrote, and I remember being surprised when I wrote it, I wrote that at the age, I was 33 at the time, and I said, I will start or found a church or spiritual community by the age of 40, parentheses, Celebration Spiritual Center. By the age of 36, I had already co-founded my second spiritual center, which is what CSC is. I co-founded Expansion Church with Rodney McKenzie, and then Pastor Yolanda and I co-founded Celebration Spiritual Center at the age of 36 for me. Now, here's what's interesting about this, and this is what I want to leave you with. We've heard it said, the race is not given to the swift nor the strong, but to the one that endures in the end. Now, just a quick teaching moment. We attribute that to the Bible, and it's not. In the book of Ecclesiastes, we read, it's Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 11, the race is not given to the swift. And then it says something completely different after that. What the writer of Ecclesiastes was talking about is this idea that it says it's neither given to the swift nor the strong. Bread is not given to the wise. It's an understanding that you could be the best of persons, but life can still happen to each and every one of us, right? It doesn't matter just because we're the strongest or we're the swiftest or we're the wisest. It goes on to talk about that these different things happen to us. So because we're strong or because we're smart or any of those things, that doesn't make us immune to disappointment or sadness or the ebbs and flows of life. But it's Aesop's fable, the tortoise and the hare, where we get this idea, and there are, of course, different versions of the story, but the race is not given to the swift, but to those who endure in the end. That teaching, that moral, that idea is the tortoise and the hare. And so what I began to think about in my life, the 4Ts program is a 12-week process. And as you go through that process, it feels much longer than that because that was my whole summer. The summer of 2009 was dedicated to changing my life, right? And so it felt much longer than 12 weeks. And again, there were times where as I had to do the forgiveness work, I stopped and had to come back to it. But I kept coming back to it. I kept coming back to that place, to enduring to the end. No matter what, I kept bringing myself back to it. This is what a metaphysician does. A metaphysician endures. A metaphysician gives himself or herself the time that's needed if it feels difficult in the moment, but you come back to it. You get up the next day and bring yourself back to it. And what I understand, as you bring yourself to it, even those things that you articulate that you think are far off, because at the time at 33, when I said I would do this by 40, I thought I was going to be in some special place in my life that now as I'm 40, I can now lead a spiritual center, right? But I've come to understand that God uses us right where we are, as we are, how we are, to transform, to change, to inspire, and to empower. And so as I recognize that, what Source knew to be true, it didn't take long. At 33, I'm thinking, again, 7 years from now, I'm going to do something at 36. It was done. The race is not given to the swift nor the strong, but to the one that endures until the end. Now, Pastor Yolanda and I are here to support each and every one of you. You've already heard, 4T starts on Thursday. And if you're ready to take this journey, I love teaching the class because I love what it's done for my life. I love walking you through the journey because I know what it's done for me. And I've watched it do the same thing for every person from any walk of life. There's no thing. I don't care what your thing is. You think you're special. It's not special. I'm sorry. Right? You might think your challenge is unique. Right? It's not. all things are possible. And so with that, I invite everybody to stand. And Ben, if you could just take us back to the I'll pray for you, you pray for me. And watch God change things. We take a deep breath in right here and right now. And we exhale. Mother, Father God, we recognize that you are the power, the peace, the presence, the ease, the freedom, the joy, the harmony, the beauty, the love that is. For you are that love, you are that harmony, you are that beauty that is in back of and behind all love, all beauty as it's manifested into life. You are the creative process. You are spirit, mind, and body. And we recognize as you create from this place of saying, let there be, and it is, so you have endowed us with the same powers as creators. We recognize that we are one with you. We are one with the creative process. We are one with that process that allows us to speak, and so it is. We recognize that we are one with love itself. We are one with power. We are one with all strength. We are one with all sufficiency. We are one with abundance and prosperity. We are God in form, individualized expressions. As you, Mother, Father God, are the ocean, eternal and vast. We are the waves, expressing your eternal nature and expressing your vastness in, through, and as our lives. As we recognize who and what you are, as we recognize who and what we are, and as we recognize that there is a creative process by which all things come into being, I now speak a word and plant it into the mind. I declare and decree that each and every person within this room and within the sound of my voice is a metaphysician. I declare and decree that as each and every person in this space and within the sound of my voice is a metaphysician, each and every person within this space has a healed mind. We operate from the level of the unseen, for we recognize that we can bring anything into being that we can conceive. So right here and right now, we conceive healing. Healing in our minds and healing in our bodies. Right here and right now, we conceive healing in our relationships and healing in our family and healing in our intimate relationships and healing in our romantic relationships and healing in our relationship with ourselves. Right here and now, we declare and decree that we are prosperous. We are prosperous in every area of our life and prospering in every area of our life. As we recognize that there is more than enough sunshine, more than enough rain, more than enough oxygen, more than enough flowers, more than enough sand. As we recognize this to be true, we know there is more than enough for any need or desire that we have. My sister, my brother, right here and right now, I know that there is more than enough for you to begin that business. I know that there is more than enough for you to start that family. I know that there is more than enough for you to take that step that you want to take because the net is there and it's always there. I know that there is more than enough love for you to heal. I know that there is more than enough love for you to find that intimate partner, that loving partner, that romantic partner that you seek. There is more than enough because there is more than enough God. And so as we live in this vibration and this understanding of more than enough, I am grateful and thankful for the power of affirmative prayer. I am grateful and thankful for the power to be able to speak those things that are not as though they were. And so we hang out in the realm of mind. We hang out in the realm of possibility. We hang out in the realm of answers, and we hang out in the realm of solutions, and we let answers, and we let solutions, and we let possibility come into being right here and right now. And so, Mother, Father, God, it is with joy and thanksgiving that I release this prayer. I release it back into your mind. I plant it in mine, and I know that the how is not my business, so I let it go. For I know that you are intelligent. You are like the sun that shines upon the seed and upon the soil. You are like the rain that falls upon the soil, and you are like the minerals in the soil that nourishes that seed. I let you do your elegant work elegantly. I let you do your effortless work effortlessly. I let you do your easy work easily. And so enjoy as I release this prayer. I am confident that each and every one of us will experience the fruit of these words. And so now I watch, now I wait, now I rejoice, now I expect, Now I stand on my tippy toes looking over the hills, seeing you rushing to me, seeing you rushing to me, seeing my good rushing to me. And so it is with joy and thanksgiving that we say amen, ashe. And so it is. And so it is. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.